Hello, my name is Sarah Okerlund. I am the urban engineer for the Iowa DOT Local Systems Bureau. Today, I am going to be sharing a few updates and reminders relative to federal aid fund management. While many of our new, previously federal aid projects have been switched to SWAP, there are still federal aid projects out there, and we need to be aware of how to manage those funds appropriately. There are several aspects associated with managing federal funds. Most of these come from federal regulations and the stewardship agreement between FHWA and Iowa DOT. For additional details, please read and reference IM 1.200. The first item we will discuss today are project end dates. Again, these are required by federal regulation. Whenever FHWA authorization is requested for federal aid, both a beginning and an end date need to be established. This means a separate project end date is established for all authorizations. For example, if you had a large project and were using federal aid on eligible design services, right-of-way, railroad, and construction, each of those activities would have their own authorization and project end date. The overall project end date used for project closeout would then be the latest project end date, typically construction. I recommend adding each authorization project end date to your calendar with a reminder a few months prior. Project end dates for active construction projects will be in the Agreement and Resolution drawer within Doc Express.
If your project predates Doc Express or involves more than just construction phase authorizations, please reach out to your regional field staff or administering bureau and they can provide this information for you.
Only costs incurred between the authorization date and the project end date are eligible for reimbursement. Activities occurring before and after this period are ineligible for federal reimbursement. If you find yourself approaching a project end date and do not feel work will be completed prior to that project end date, a project end date extension should be requested. These extension requests should be submitted in writing to your regional field engineer or administering bureau at least 8 weeks before the project end date. An email is an acceptable form of written notification. A timely project end date extension request minimizes the ineligible period. If you recall, eligible activities must occur between the authorization date and the project end date. If a project end date lapses, work taking place between a project end date and the project end date extension authorization will be ineligible for federal reimbursement. Justification for a PED extension must be beyond the control of the local agency or based upon changes within FEMA's project authorizations. Examples of some of these possibilities might be litigation, major changes in design, environmental or permit issues, construction claims, differing site conditions, significant additional work, area-wide material shortages, labor strikes, unknown utility conflicts, or unusually severe weather. A project end date extension is also recommended when all federal funds have been expended, but the project remains active due to other ineligible divisions of work. This is because the project cannot be closed out until all work is complete. IM 1.200 Attachment A explains how PEDs are estimated and established. Local agencies will not be required to provide these dates. Iowa DOT establishes them when requesting FHWA authorization. But please notify your administering agency if you have a complex project where you think additional time beyond what is normally established would be necessary. The next topic we'll discuss is inactive obligations. Each time federal funds are authorized by FHWA, they become obligated. Similar to project end dates, there are federal regulations that require monitoring activity of the obligations. In order to remain active, a reimbursement from FHWA must be processed annually, or once every 12 months. After 12 months of inactivity, remaining federal funds can be pulled at any time. You can avoid falling into the inactive category by processing regular reimbursements. There are some limited circumstances where projects may be justified as remaining inactive, but these typically involve litigation or other situations outside the local agency's control. Please work with your local field staff or administering bureau if you feel your project falls into this category. FHWA and the Iowa DOT do a review of all open projects quarterly. At the end of March 2020, there were over 1,300 open federal aid projects in Iowa. Local agencies are managing fewer federal aid projects as SWAP is implemented. However, there are still hundreds of local federal aid projects. Given the number of projects, if regional field staff or the administering bureau reach out to you regarding the activity on a federal aid project, a timely response and action would be very much appreciated. Sometimes the action may simply involve processing a partial mobilization for a construction project that has been let, but active construction has not yet begun, or it could involve initiating retainage release or expediting project closeout. Remember, the goal here is to avoid jeopardizing federal funds. Another requirement most of you are likely aware of is Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which essentially prohibits intentional discrimination. For additional details, please check out IM 1.070 linked here. Following this is necessary for any local government that receives any federal funding, whether directly from a federal agency or indirectly through a state agency. This means it does not just apply to transportation, but to any federal assistance an agency might receive, including potential COVID or FEMA assistance, whether distributed directly from federal agencies or funneled through a state agency, similar to how Iowa DOT administers FHWA funding to the locals. Agencies with population of greater than 250,000 are required to have Title VI plans. Agencies with populations of less than 250,000 are required to have Title VI agreements. Again, please see IM 1.070 for additional details. These agreements and plans should be updated within 30 days of an agency leader change, or at least every 5 years, whichever is less. An update is also required when substantial organizational or policy changes impact how an agency complies with Title VI. If your community's Title VI plan or agreement requires updating, or if you are unable to find your local Title VI plan or agreement, you can reach out to the Civil Rights Bureau. For a full staff directory, please visit the Civil Rights Bureau website. The main contact responsibilities for Title VI and EEO-AA compliance are broken into even and odd districts. Please start with Steve Kerber if you are in Districts 1, 3, or 5, and Tracy Bradley if you are in Districts 2, 4, or 6. The Iowa DOT Civil Rights Bureau also provides other services that may be beneficial or of interest to you as you work through your federal aid projects or even state or locally funded projects. The Civil Rights Bureau maintains the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, known as the DBE certifications. For the current directory, please visit the linked website. They also administer Iowa DOT's Equal Employment Opportunity and Affirmative Action programs and serve as the ADA coordinator for the Iowa DOT's Transition Plan for ADA compliance. They are also an active part of our public involvement. Their website also has some other resources and references, including a list of local interpreters and translators for sign language and other languages if your agency has a need for them. Thanks for viewing this update. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me or others as referenced in the presentation. Thank you.